Ladies and gentlemen, I stand before you today with a message burning in my heart, a message of liberation, hope, and divine assurance. You've prayed, you've cried, and you've endured. And now God declares this is the end of your struggle. Ladies and gentlemen, your struggle was never meant to destroy you. It was designed to build you. When life pressed you, when it tested you, when it stretched you beyond what you thought you could endure, it wasn't because you were abandoned. No, it was because you were being refined. Think of gold. Before it becomes something of immense value, it must endure the fire. It is heated, melted, and purified. The impurities rise to the surface, leaving behind a substance that is stronger, purer, and more valuable. Your struggle has been your refining fire. You see, every challenge you faced wasn't random. Every heartbreak, every setback, every sleepless night, it all had a purpose. We often ask, why me? But the better question is, why not me? If greatness is your destiny, then preparation must be your journey. God doesn't call the unprepared to extraordinary purposes. He equips through experience. He molds through adversity. And sometimes the most profound lessons aren't learned in moments of comfort, but in the depths of hardship. Your struggle was a classroom, and you were the student being taught patience, resilience, and unwavering faith. Now consider the story of Joseph. Betrayed by his own brothers, sold into slavery, falsely accused, and imprisoned. His life seemed to be a series of relentless trials. But every single moment of struggle was orchestrated for a greater purpose. When the time came, Joseph rose to a position of power, not despite his suffering, but because of it. The struggle strengthened him, shaped his character, and prepared him to lead. In the same way, your struggle is preparing you. You may not see the full picture yet, but trust that the trials you've endured are the very things positioning you for greatness. Struggles teach us things success never can. Success can sometimes make us complacent, but struggle keeps us humble, keeps us grounded, and most importantly, keeps us dependent on God. When everything is smooth, it's easy to take credit for your journey. But when you fought through storms, when you've endured seasons where all you had was faith, you come to realize that it was never by your strength alone. It was by God's hand guiding you through the darkness, molding you in the process. And don't think for a moment that your struggle went unnoticed. Every tear you shed, every prayer whispered in desperation, every step you took when your legs felt like giving out, it was seen. It was heard. It was recorded. And it was used. God has been working behind the scenes, orchestrating your breakthrough in ways you can't even fathom. He didn't allow you to struggle just to leave you there. He allowed it so you could emerge with a strength and clarity that only comes from enduring the fire. Ladies and gentlemen, your struggle has been a tool of transformation. You are not the same person you were when it began. You are stronger. You are wiser. And now you are ready for what's next. Ready to walk into the purpose that God has been preparing for you all along. Ladies and gentlemen, there's a rhythm to life, a divine cadence orchestrated by God. Just as nature transitions seamlessly from winter to spring, so too do our lives move through seasons. There's a time for sowing and a time for reaping, a time for tears and a time for joy, a time for struggle, and yes, a time for breakthrough. Recognizing the end of a season requires more than just endurance, it demands discernment. It calls for an awareness of the spiritual shifts happening around you, the subtle signs that the storm is passing and the sun is beginning to rise. When you've been in a season of struggle, it can feel endless. The weight of the challenges can dull your senses, making it hard to see the light breaking through. Yet God never leaves us in darkness without a glimmer of hope. That glimmer often comes in ways we least expect. A door that was once tightly shut starts to creak open. A voice of encouragement comes when you're on the verge of giving up. Peace begins to replace anxiety, and clarity starts to emerge from confusion. These are not coincidences, they are the whispers of God, signaling that the season of struggle is drawing to a close. However, recognizing these signs requires a shift in perspective. Too often, we become so accustomed to the struggle that we fail to see when it's ending. We're braced for battle, eyes fixed on the challenges, hearts heavy with expectation of more hardship. But when God declares an end to your struggle, He invites you to lift your gaze, to shift from survival mode to a posture of readiness for change. He beckons you to look beyond the horizon and see the new dawn He has prepared. This shift isn't always easy. There's a part of us that clings to the familiar, even if the familiar is painful. We may hesitate, doubting whether the end is truly near or whether we're merely imagining relief. But let me remind you of this truth: God is not the author of confusion. When He brings an end to a season, He does so with clarity and purpose. He doesn't tease us with false hope, He moves with intention. The peace that begins to settle in your spirit, the opportunities that start to align, the relationships that are being restored, these are divine indicators that your wilderness journey is over. Yet discernment alone isn't enough. Recognizing the end of a season also requires faith. Faith to believe that the struggle was never meant to define you, but to refine you. Faith to trust that the God who brought you through the storm is now leading you into a place of rest. Faith to step forward, even when remnants of doubt linger. This faith isn't blind, it's anchored in the unwavering promises of God. He said He would never leave you nor forsake you, and He hasn't. He said He would turn your mourning into dancing, and He would. When you begin to recognize that the season of struggle is ending, your entire perspective changes. You no longer see obstacles as insurmountable, you see them as stepping stones. You no longer walk with a bowed head, burdened by the weight of uncertainty. Instead, you lift your eyes to the heavens, knowing that your help comes from the Lord. You begin to expect favor where there was once resistance, to anticipate blessings where there was once lack. This is the power of recognizing the end of a season. It transforms your outlook and positions you to receive the fullness of God's promise. So listen closely, look around you, feel the shift in the atmosphere. The winds of change are blowing, and they carry with them the unmistakable voice of God saying, this is the end of your struggle. Faith in God's promises is the lifeline that keeps us steady when the world around us crumbles. It is easy to trust when the path is clear, when everything is smooth and predictable. But real faith, the kind of faith that transforms lives, comes alive when we are in the thick of our struggles, when the storms rage and the light at the end of the tunnel seems like a distant dream. This kind of faith doesn't rely on what we see or feel. It is anchored in what God has spoken. When God makes a promise, He binds Himself to His word. He doesn't waver. He doesn't backtrack. His promises are eternal, unchanging, and steadfast. Think about that for a moment. The same God who spoke light into existence, who parted the seas, and who raised the dead, has declared promises over your life. If He could hold the universe together with His words, do you think your struggle is beyond His reach? Absolutely not. But here's the challenge: we often let our circumstances dictate our faith instead of allowing our faith to influence our circumstances. Faith demands that we shift our focus from what's happening around us to what God has said. It's easy to be discouraged when you're surrounded by problems, bills piling up, relationships breaking down, health deteriorating. The enemy wants you to believe that your situation is hopeless, that God has forgotten you. But that is a lie. The promises of God are your weapon, your shield, your unshakable foundation. When you declare, God is my provider, even when your bank account says otherwise, you are standing in faith. When you say, by His stripes I am healed, even when the diagnosis looks grim, You are anchoring yourself to a divine reality greater than your present condition. Faith isn't passive. It's not sitting back and hoping things will change. Faith is active. It's a declaration, a stand, a choice to believe even when everything tells you not to. Faith says, I trust in God's word more than I trust in what I see. It's the kind of faith that drove Abraham to leave everything familiar, trusting that God would lead him to a promise he couldn't yet see. It's the faith that empowered David to stand before Goliath with nothing but a sling and a stone because he believed in the God who had delivered him before. And it's the faith that held Job steady when everything was stripped away. Yet he declared, though he slay me, yet will I hope in him. God's promises are not dependent on your situation. They are dependent on his character. And his character is faithful, righteous, and true. He doesn't promise ease, he promises victory. He doesn't promise a life free from struggle. He promises his presence in the midst of it. And when God is with you, no mountain is too high, no valley too deep, no storm too fierce. His promise is that he will never leave you nor forsake you, that he will fight for you, that he will work all things together for your good. Sometimes faith feels like a battle. You may have days where you're clinging to his promises with everything you've got, and other days where doubt creeps in. That's okay. Faith is not the absence of doubt, it's the decision to trust God in spite of it. And when you choose to stand firm, heaven moves on your behalf. Angels are dispatched. Doors begin to open. Chains start to break. You may not see it right away, but faith is the currency of the kingdom. It activates the supernatural. You have a choice every day to focus on your struggle or to focus on his promise. Choose his promise. Speak it over your life. Meditate on it. Let it sink deep into your spirit until it becomes more real than your circumstances. When you do, you'll begin to see not just with your natural eyes, but with eyes of faith. You'll see that the God who made the promise is already working, already moving, already bringing it to pass. Faith in God's promises is your anchor in the storm, your light in the darkness, and your assurance that what he has spoken will come to pass. So rise up in faith today. Hold on to his promises. Declare them with boldness. And watch as he turns your struggle into a testimony of his unfailing love and power. Gratitude is often the most overlooked yet most powerful force in our spiritual journey. It's easy to be thankful when everything is going well, when the skies are clear, the path is smooth, and blessings flow effortlessly. But true gratitude, the kind that transforms hearts and lives, is forged in the fires of struggle. It is in the moments when life feels heavy, when answers seem distant, and when hope is but a flicker, that gratitude becomes not just a response, but a weapon. A weapon that pierces through despair and ushers in divine favor. When we face challenges, our natural inclination is to focus on what we've lost or what's missing. But God invites us to shift our perspective. Instead of lamenting the storm, we are called to thank him for the shelter he provides during it. Instead of dwelling on the setback, we are urged to be grateful for the strength gained in enduring it. Gratitude isn't about ignoring reality, it's about recognizing God's hand even in the midst of chaos. It's about declaring, God, I may not understand this season, but I trust that you are working all things together for my good. In moments of transition, when we move from struggle to triumph, from sorrow to joy, gratitude becomes the bridge. It reminds us of where we've been and prepares us for where we are going. You see, gratitude keeps our hearts open. It prevents us from becoming hardened by disappointment or blinded by pride. When you thank God in advance for your breakthrough, you're not just expressing hope, you're activating faith. You're telling your circumstances that they do not have the final word, God does. And his word is victory. Consider the story of those who journeyed through wilderness seasons in Scripture. Time and time again, their gratitude in the face of adversity was the catalyst for divine intervention. When walls seemed insurmountable, when resources were scarce, it was their praise and thanksgiving that opened doors and released miracles. The same principle applies to us today. Gratitude invites God into our situation. It shifts our focus from the problem to the promise, from our limitations to His limitless power. Some of you may be standing at the edge of your transition right now. You can feel that something is changing, but perhaps fear or uncertainty holds you back. Let gratitude be your guide. Thank Him for the lessons learned in the struggle. Thank Him for the perseverance He built in you. Thank Him for the strength you didn't know you had until the storm came. And as you do, you will find that gratitude doesn't just change your perspective, it changes your reality. Doors that seemed closed will open. Opportunities you thought were lost will return. And the peace of God, which surpasses all understanding, will guard your heart and mind. Gratitude isn't just an attitude, it's a declaration of faith. It says, God, I see your goodness even in the waiting. I trust your plan even when it's unclear. I know you are faithful, and I praise you not just for what you've done, but for what you are about to do. When you live in gratitude, you live in expectation. You walk with the assurance that every trial has a purpose, every delay has a reason, and every blessing has been perfectly timed by the one who knows the end from the beginning. So as you transition from struggle to victory, let gratitude be your anthem. Let it fill your prayers, your thoughts, and your conversations. Let it remind you that the God who carried you through the valley is the same God who now leads you to the mountaintop. And as you embrace this spirit of thankfulness, you'll discover that gratitude doesn't just prepare you for the next season, it empowers you to thrive in it. Ladies and gentlemen, as you stand on the brink of your new season, remember this: your struggle was never meant to break you, but to build you. Every tear you shed, every obstacle you faced, and every prayer you whispered in the dark has led you to this moment. God is declaring that your time of struggle is over. Now is the time to walk in faith, in strength, and in gratitude. Let your heart overflow with thankfulness for the journey, for it has shaped you into who you are today. Embrace the victory that lies ahead, knowing that God has prepared you for this moment. You have been refined by the fire, strengthened by the trials, and now you are ready to rise. So step forward boldly. The chains are gone, the path is clear, and your future is radiant with promise. This is not just the end of your struggle, it's the beginning of a new chapter filled with purpose, joy, and abundance. God has spoken, and His word is final. Your breakthrough is here. Thank you.